Hello, YouTube. This is Mage Power coming to you once again. I'm going to try and do a video almost every single day of the year this year. That's one of my resolutions, is trying to get as many videos out, streaming as much as I can, and things like that. So if you want to follow me along the way, make sure you have that like and notifications on. Make sure you follow me up on Twitch up here, twitch.tv/magepower. Anyways, this is my Subterror build your own list. So we're going to get into this. This is basically going to be a how-to Subterror. This is a deck that I first of all have to give a shout out to Team Excite Maverick. He was the guy that really got me into this deck, and I've kind of ran with it, and I I think people would agree that this is a very good deck, especially this format. So obviously, right away, it's Guru. You have to have your Guru. This is the love and soul and blood of the deck. You have to play Guru. I obviously recommend playing 3 of this. This is everything the deck does right here in one card. We have Subterror Fiendus. This is the hand or field negate. You send it from hand or field to negate things. This is a 3 of. This also has its own effect that can bring back a Subterror face down by targeting a Subterror and flipping it face down if Fiendus is on the field. So one thing that people don't always realize is you can summon Fiendus, target itself, flip it down to summon back your Guru from the graveyard. So not only can this be a monster reborn, but it's a negate. Very good card all in one. And then we have Subterror Nemesis Archer. This card, it might be a little slow by modern standards, but I still like it. I've gone back between 1 and 2, but essentially this has 2 effects. The first one, if it's destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can special a Subterror monster from your deck. I believe it's face up or face down. Is that what it says here? Yep, face up or face down defense position. And so that allows it to be able to go into Guru, and if you're playing a behemoth, you can do a behemoth. But the other effect allows you to attack a face down monster and shuffle it into the deck. And because this deck is able to change the ways that monsters are face up and face down, even of opponents' monsters, this does allow the potential removal of problematic cards with that effect, but it doesn't always come up. It's a decent card, though, and I think it is worth playing at least at 1. Then we have Subterror Cave Clash getting into the searchable spell and traps. Cave Clash is a solid 1 of. Basically, if your Subterror monster deals damage, you get recursion from the graveyard, you add 1 back. So this will allow you to add, like, your Fiendus back to hand. If you need a Guru, you can add a Guru back to hand. All you have to do is do battle damage. And then this also will boost your Subterror monsters 500 attack and defense per every set monster on the field. So if there's 5 set monsters on the field, this card will boost all your Subterrors by 2,500. So yeah, I know attack and stat boosting isn't necessarily that great in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! But when you're talking significant numbers such as that, yeah, that's pretty substantial. Then we have Subterror Final Battle. This is basically the main trap of the deck. This is a card that you're going to want to see very, very much. Essentially, this has 4 different effects. This could either flip one of your Subterror monsters face down, flip one of your Subterror monsters face up, stop your opponent from being able to negate your Subterror monster effects, or double the attack and defense of, or sorry, not double, combine the attack and defense of one of your Subterror monsters battling. So if it's Guru, for example, Guru has 1,600 attack and 1,800 defense. Guru would become 3,400 attack, 3,400 defense with that effect. So this card, the other reason why this is really big is because if you use Final Battle, it will reset itself face down, And this card being able to flip and flop and flip and flop, it basically allows Guru to flip itself even without Guru using its effect. And this being a trap that resets itself means you can use this and abuse it and go and go and go and use it every single turn. So this card, it's really good. 3 of easily. And then as far as other spell and traps that you should play, I do recommend Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance, this deck is not a deck that really relies on the extra deck. That's why I am also mentioning Pot of Disparity here. This card is not a card we have in the TCG yet, but it is coming out in Blazing Vortex in 1 month's time. I do think that you are probably going to decide between these two cards. Obviously, that's going to be a personal preference thing, I think, for this deck. This deck can play either one and be fine. But, obviously, as I always say, do your testing, find out which one you like more, and, you know, don't always take my advice. If you think something's better, go for that. But I personally am more of a fan of Extravagance. A card that says draw 2 is pretty good. The difference with the Disparity is that you only get one card, but you can banish the cards from your extra deck and not do it randomly. So you can, if you have cards in your extra deck that you don't want banished, guess what? You're in control of that. But with this deck, like I said, I don't know that it's really going to care because this deck doesn't care about the extra deck that much. Then, obviously, we have Hidden City. This is the other bread and butter of the deck. When this card is activated, you add a Subterror monster from your deck to your hand. So this card is essentially your field spell Searcher, and then once per turn, you can target a face-down monster and flip it face up on your side of the field. So this, if you activate this, search your Guru, set the Guru, activate City to flip face up, flip the Guru face up with this effect, and then Guru gets your search, because Guru, when flipped face up, searches any Subterror card. I forgot to mention that earlier, but if you know this deck, you should already have known that. Once per turn, when the monster declares an attack on your monster, you can flip one of your face down monsters. You could flip it face up to negate the attack. That's an effect that people need to keep in mind because I know there are a lot of people who forget that effect. So that is what Hidden City does. It's a very good card and very reliable card. And it's a card you definitely want to see. It's a 3 of because it's unsearchable. But that doesn't mean you can't also play cards like Terraforming. It is limited at 1, but you could also play Metaverse. And I know people have even gone so far as to play Set Rotation. And people that played Set Rotation would also play things like Mystic Mine. I find Mystic Mine is a decent one of in this deck. But I know there are people who, including myself, don't like playing Mystic Mine. It's a card that I believe should be on the ban list in some capacity, even if it's not. I'm not going to go on a Mystic Mine rant here, but, take that with a grain of salt. Another option that I find is pretty good is the Numeron Network. This is another field spell that you could play. The Numerons being summoned from your extra deck. Like I said, because this deck doesn't rely on the extra deck, you could put just about any extra deck sort of engine in here that you want and make it pretty good. So we're going to start getting into some of the options here. Obviously, if you're playing Numeron Network, you're probably playing 3 of it with 1 calling. But real quickly, getting into the behemoths, because there aren't that many that I find are very good, but the main reason you'll see arguments about playing behemoths is because they are kind of bricks if you open them. So I generally say if you're going to play a behemoth, play it at 1. Umastrix, generally speaking, is the one everyone agrees on is the best. Basically, this, when it flips face up, you target a monster your opponent controls and banish it. So it's good interruption if you can get this face down and flip it face up on your opponent's turn. Another two options that I do like that I have played in the past. I do like Stygo Kraken. Stygo Kraken can target set cards on the field up to the number of Subterror Behemoth monsters you control and destroy them. So it essentially is a. So I like this especially against back row decks because this can target like set back row, for example. It can force activations of set cards. Additionally, if you flip an opponent's monster face down, you can flip Stygo Kraken face up and destroy that set monster. So Stygo Kraken I find is a decent option. I actually do enjoy siding this card for decks like the Mirror Match, for example. If you run into another Subterror deck, you can use Stygo Kraken on their set trap cards. Against Paleo, for example, you could use it on them. On Altergeist, all these other back row decks, Stygo Kraken is very good. Any deck that likes setting cards, this is a good card against them. And then Ultra Mothus, this is the biggest. It's 3,000 attack. Obviously, this was 1,400 and this was 2,000. This is 3,000. This is the Beatstick Subterror Behemoth, but it's still not a bad card. Essentially, when this is flipped face up, you can change all other monsters to face down. So it's a Book of Eclipse. I do, regardless, as another decent option. Obviously, do your testing. If you like playing the behemoths, that's fine, But like I said, I wouldn't play any of them at more than one. I do think these are probably the best three options, though. Additionally, I do like playing hand traps in my build. I find if you're not playing a lot of real traps, you're not going to get blown out by a lightning storm, a harpies feather duster. If your traps are hand traps, DD Crow, for example, as you see here, well, guess what? There's not a lot of cards that's going to just blow up a DD Crow randomly in your hand. So with that, it's why I do personally lean towards playing hand traps over real traps. However, if you want to play real traps, I do recommend cards like Ice Dragon's Prison. Ice Dragon's Prison is a very good card right now. Crackdown is another very good option. There can be only one. You don't really get affected by this card. This is a very good card against certain decks. And obviously, Solemns are always very good. So, Judgment, Warning, Strike. Obviously, that a lot of that comes down to player preference, though. So, again, do your own testing, find out what you like, and then from there we have the Dogmatica. I know a lot of people have been trying to play Dogmatica in this. It's called the kitchen sink variant, where you throw all these different engines in there, including Dogmatica. And I personally don't like the Dogmatica in here. I like some of these other engines in here, but I don't feel personally the Dogmatica fits. But if you are playing the Dogmatica stuff, you are probably playing 2 to 3 Ecclesia. This is the main searcher of the deck. You are probably playing at least one copy of Fleur de Lis, and you are probably playing at least 2 copies of Punishment. And if you are playing Punishment, chances are you are playing at least one Elder Entity, and you might also be playing a Wind Pegasus, and you might also be playing a Titanclad, the Ash Dragon. This will allow you to get to your other stuff. So if you draw a punishment, send Titanclad. Titanclad in the end phase can get you to an Ecclesia, which can get you to a Fleur de Lis. But the biggest reason why I don't like those cards in here is because you do want to commit your summon usually to setting Guru, and oftentimes, especially going first, you're not going to get that extra deck body on board to be able to special Ecclesia, which means you have to hard open the punishment. So that's why I don't like it in here, but I know other people do. Additionally, I did mention the Numeron network earlier, So you could be playing Numeron Wall. Numeron Wall is the specific searcher for it. It's also randomly a battle fader, but I don't really see that coming up. So, I mean, that's cool. I do like Red Eyes Fusion in this. I personally have actually tried playing this at 3 in here, just still only playing the 1 and 1 of the Red Eyes and Dark Magician. Obviously, you're playing the Dragoon with it, but being able to summon out your Dragoon and still being able to set Guru face down and flip it face up with City, it's really nice to be able to get that way. And then, like I said, you have all these traps that you can play. And the last thing I really want to talk about is Super Poly. Super Poly is a good option. Again, because the extra deck is pretty wide open for this deck, Super Poly being able to stuff just a ton of different fusion monsters into your extra deck that are good Super Poly targets, it's not a bad idea, especially in formats where this is very good. So in formats where you see a lot of dark monsters, you could play Super Poly and play multiple copies of Starving Venom. You could play Mud Dragon. You could play Elder Entity Ns is actually a decent Super Poly target in certain formats. So again, obviously that's all format dependent. Do your testing, find out what you like. Then real quickly going over some of the extra deck cards. I already mentioned the Ns, I already mentioned Wind Pegasus. If you're playing the Numeron package, obviously you're going to want to be considering numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and S0. I do think you should also consider Megaclops because it's a very difficult card to deal with. And then a lot of people overlook it, but that does also open up Avermax potential. Avermax is still a very good card. I do think you're probably playing S0 and Megaclops over Avermax, but it's another card to consider. If you are playing the Red Eyes Fusion, again, you can consider Verite Anaconda. Verite Anaconda obviously sends the Red Eyes Fusion to summon your Dragoon. Beyond that, there's not that much really to talk about in the extra deck here. I I think I've covered most of what I really want to cover here. So, as I always say, do your testing. What I say might not be what works for you. Everything here, this is why I just present it in the format I do. So, thank you for watching. This is Mage Power. United we stand, in Mage Power we trust.